What is up, everybody? Steel Orange coming back at you today with another Smite guide. Today it's going to be the guide to the support role. So what we're going to be doing is talking a little bit about the openings as a support, what you're going to buy, how you're going to start off the game. Then we're going to talk about the laning phase a little bit, what you're going to do, sort of the different lanes that you're going to be in, because it's a little bit complicated with supports. And then we're going to go back to the God screen like I've done with all the other roles, and we're going to go through the different support characters and talk about sort of their roles in team fights and sort of categorize them as to what the different Guardians do best in team fights. So, to start, we're going to talk about the opening for supports. You're going to buy Watcher's Gift. A lot of people at lower levels, like to buy Mark of the Vanguard because it makes you really tanky, it's easy to survive. People don't want to die in lane. What I'm telling you now is you don't want to do that the vast majority of the time. You don't want to do that because you're going to get so far behind that it's just going to be counterintuitive. So you really want to buy Watcher's Gift. If you're dying a lot in lane, that means you want to change your playstyle up to avoid dying so much rather than buying Mark of the Vanguard, because even though it might help you a little bit early on in the game, in the late game, it's going to really hurt you because you're going to be so far behind that you're really not going to be the tanky presence that your team needs. Aside from that, you're going to buy boots, and then you're usually going to buy some potions. You can kind of change this up depending on the situation and what you prefer to buy. You can also buy wards at the beginning of the game if you want and go ward. I'll point out those spots in a second. For now, I'm just going to buy some potions for the fun of it. And then as far as relics go, you're not buying beads or sanctuary or anything like that on a guardian. Usually the ones that you want to buy something that's going to help your team. So very common choice right now is meditation. It helps in lane. It's helpful for your carry. Just gotta help them sustain and get the gold that they need. You can also buy sprint. This is really helpful for sustaining in lane, especially against high damage comps and comps that want to burst you down. You can help you get away. Shell is a great active, especially once you start to transition into the team fight stage. It's really helpful for your team, and Curse is another really popular one. Also, for a few Guardians, Geb is one of them. There are a few other ones that are very good at initiating. Blink is a good option to pick as well if you want to be really aggressive in lane. If you don't, but you want to be aggressive later, then maybe save that for your second relic. For now, I'm just going to grab Sprint so I can run around really fast. And I'm going to pick this up too so I can move faster. Alright, so normally in the beginning of the game, you'd be out of the base already, obviously, because it can't spawn. But as a support, you're going to start over here at the red buff with your mid laner and your carry, your hunter, ADC, whatever you want to call him. And you guys together are going to clear this red buff as fast as you can. Usually what I like to do as support is usually I'll let either the ADC or the mage pull the camp first, so they pull it to them, and then they kind of like leech it back to the back of the camp, and then they'll let it go to me. So let them hit it first, then you want to attack it, and you're going to tank the majority of the damage. You know, the mage might take a couple hits at the very beginning, but then you're going to take the most damage because you're the support, so you want to be taking the damage. You're going to drop that as fast as you can, and the mid laner, the mage, is going to pick that up. Then the mid laner is going to go to mid lane, and you and your ADC are going to come over to these boards right here, and you're going to grab these. Actually, the ADC will probably pull them, and they're going to send them to you, and you guys are going to clear these as fast as you can. And then you're going to go to wave. You might need to pop a health pot, maybe a mana pot or whatever, depending on what potions you bought by the time you get to lane, because you might have taken a little bit of damage from those camps. So now you're going to get to lane. At this point, depending on who gets to lane first and who has a stronger composition, like in the laning phase, you might get lane pressure, you might not. But the main goal here is, if you have lane pressure, you want to keep the other team pressured under tower, just keep them behind. Keep them behind their tower and just force minions into their tower so that they lose gold, they lose experience, and obviously if you can get kills, it's always a bonus. It gets you guys ahead. The other thing though is that if you don't have lane pressure, or if the other team's just better at fighting than you, or they're just have a more aggressive composition than you really want to make sure that you don't die. So you want to play passive. You know, if you have to go back into your tower, you lose a little bit of gold, that's okay, but you want to make sure that you're not dying in lane. It's really important for the ADC that you're protecting to get fed and get to late game as fast as possible. So if they're dying a lot, or if you're dying a lot, it's really going to set you guys behind, and so you don't want to let that happen. So even if you have to lose a little bit of gold to stay alive, it's very important that you stay alive. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you guys do get into a fight and your ADC is going to die, you want to body block for them. You want to get in the way of the attacks. You want to try to peel for them, which just means using any abilities, any crowd control that you have to interrupt the other team so that your ADC can get away. But you really want to focus on keeping that ADC alive, even if it means sacrificing yourself. Obviously, the main goal in a fight is for both of you to live, but if one of you is going to die, it's better off that it's you as the support, because you are not as valuable to your team getting fed as your ADC is. So it's better for your team if you're behind than if your ADC is. So you want to not be selfish in the support role, obviously. So if your ADC needs help and you need to sacrifice yourself for the ADC, then you need to do that. That's just part of playing support. So yeah, but then for the most part, when you're in the duo lane over here, you want to clear as fast as you can, give yourself lane pressure, try to get kills if you can, try not to die, all that good stuff. Then at some point during the game, you're going to start rotating towards a mid lane. One of the most common times for this to happen is when the left mid camps, which are those right there, respawn for the first time. So they're going to be up at the beginning of the game. The jungle and mid laners are going to kind of do their dance in mid lane, and one of them is going to clear those camps, right? And then they usually respawn at around the 4-minute and 30-second mark. So it's good as a support player for you to have rotated to the mid lane by this point so that you can be there to contest those mid camps when they spawn again, because likely the other support's going to be there too, and oftentimes a fight will break out at these mid camps right here, so you want to be here to help your team, help you guys win that fight. From that point, and you can rotate earlier if you want to. Some people like to set up early ganks in the mid lane. That's kind of a preference thing, but by the time those left mid camps spawn is kind of like the latest that you want to have rotated to mid lane. So at this point, your ADC and the other ADC are going to be in the dual lane by themselves, and they're just going to kind of be doing their own thing, almost like a second solo lane, and getting really fed, getting solo farm, and just trying to get to late game as fast as possible. And then what's going to happen in the mid lane is you're going to be here along with your mid laner and jungler, and there's going to be this sort of 3v3 fight thing going on where you guys are going to be clearing wave and fighting each other. And you're almost going to act like a second jungler in the sense that you're going to alternate between clearing waves in mid lane, kind of babysitting the mid laner, and then also rotating and ganking lanes if you want to. And you can also rotate with your team, and you guys can set up ganks in different lanes. You can kind of set up around objectives. Maybe you try to get an early goal for you or something, like bait a fight in that area right there. But for the most part, you're going to be hanging out with your mid laner and your jungler from like the 4:30-ish mark until the rest of the game, basically. And then at some point, your side laners will sort of group up with your team too, and that's when the team fight phase will start. So yeah, that's basically it as far as the laning phase goes. Just keep in mind that you are the support, so you obviously don't want to be dying all the time, unnecessarily just for stupid reasons. But it is better for you to die than your team, so you want to keep that in mind. You want to have that support mentality, sacrifice for your team, get your team fed. Every support is a unique role because unlike every other role, at every other role the goal is to get fed, get as much XP as possible, get kills, get ahead, and then just snowball the game, right? As a support though, your goal is not to get fed. You don't want to get fed, because if you're getting fed, then that means that you're taking away XP from your other teammates, and you as a support are not as valuable from really far ahead as your teammates are. So your goal is to help other people on your team get fed. So whether that means giving them pressure in the lane so that you guys have access to more XP, or helping your team get kills, whatever that may be, you want to make sure that that's your mentality, is helping my team get fed as opposed to helping myself get fed, because that's something that you would do in any other role, but not so much in the support role. One last thing I want to touch on is that as a support, you want to try to avoid stealing kills. Obviously, in a big team fight, you want to put out the damage, everything's chaotic, and you want to, make sure that whatever kills you guys are going after, that those get secured. So if you get a kill here and there, it's fine. But what you want to avoid doing, what can really annoy your team, and what can also set your team back a little bit, is if you have somebody really locked down, like, they're really low health, and you've got like 3 people on them or whatever, and you're right on top of them too, and you guys are gonna get this kill, there's no doubt that you're getting this kill. You want to avoid like auto attacking that character or something and stealing that kill with like a 20 damage auto attack or something from a guardian, because it's just not necessary. That little bit of damage that you're doing with an auto attack is not gonna change whether you guys as a team get that kill or not. What it is going to do is give you the experience and gold from getting that kill, as opposed to giving it to one of your carry, your ADC or your mid laner or your jungler that you really want those kills to be going on, because you really want them to get fed. So again, don't be so afraid of stealing kills that you let kills go because you didn't want to steal it. As a team, you want to get those kills. It sets you up for objectives and lets you do a lot of different things. But if you're stealing kills with auto attacks, things like that, or just taking kills when you really didn't need to, and it was very obvious that as a team you guys were going to get that kill, try to avoid that as possible, because again, it's about helping your team get fed, not helping yourself get fed. So yeah, that's basically it as far as the laning phase. So I'm going to head back to the God screen now, and what we're going to talk about is I'm going to go through the different guardians, and also I think maybe 2 warriors. I'll go through 2 warriors as well that are typically played as supports, not only supports, but they can be played as supports pretty commonly. And I'm going to sort of categorize them into their roles in team fights. So just a little bit about team fighting in general. There's basically three things that Guardians do in team fights. So there's three things that I'm going to mainly be talking about. One is that all Guardians have a lot of crowd control. So crowd control is just things like slows, roots, stuns, things like that just interrupt the other team, affect their movement or their damage or whatever they can do somehow, just annoy the other team, disrupt them, interrupt them, things like that. Is crowd control. And that's just something to keep in mind, is that you want to use that crowd control as efficiently as possible in team fights to help your team the best that you can. The other two things that Guardians do in team fights is initiate and peel. And so real quick, I'm going to talk about these terms. They're pretty basic Smite terms, but if you haven't heard them before, if you haven't played a MOBA before or anything like that, I'm just going to go over these real quick because these are terms I'm going to be using. I want to make sure you guys know what they mean. So initiate basically just means to start a fight. If you guys are, if your group of teammates is in the area of a group of opponents and you guys are kind of staring each other down, somebody's got to start the fight, right? So that's what we call initiating. And so that's something that Guardians will do often, is initiate. And the reason that they initiate is because they're very tanky. And so whoever initiates, a lot of the times the other team will just turn on them and start throwing all their abilities onto them because you just ran at them and tried to kill them, right? So Guardians are more able to handle that kind of damage than any other character, especially supports who are going to be building tanky, whether it's a Guardian or a Warrior or whatever, are going to be more equipped to handle that kind of damage without dying, which is why they're very good at initiating. The other thing is peeling. And this is a word that I'd been playing Smite for months and didn't even know what this meant. It gets tossed around all the time, and I think a lot of people don't explain what it means. Peeling is helping prevent your teammates from dying. So, if somebody else initiates on your teammate, or they jump in the back line, meaning they're jumping on your high damage characters that are hiding behind you or whatever, trying to stay safe, and they're going to kill one of them, peeling would be turning around and freezing one of them, or stunning them, or slowing them, or disarming them, or even killing them, whatever, doing something to help your teammates survive when they're being attacked, and just stop them from dying. So that's what peeling means. It's helping your teammates survive. So those terms out of the way, what I'm going to go through is, normally I'm going to have a group of characters that are the initiators and a group of characters that are the peelers and a group of characters that are the crowd control characters. But I'm not going to do that so much with Guardians because a lot of these Guardians fit into all of these roles. So I'm just going to kind of highlight for each one what they do best or what they're most known for. And then talk about the other things that they can do too. And then some of them will stand out in other ways that I'll talk about. Also, it should be noted that every Guardian has pretty high crowd control, so I'm not going to sort of tell you this Guardian has high crowd control or that Guardian has high crowd control, because they all have high crowd control. That's part of what makes them a Guardian. Guardians have high crowd control. So I'm not going to focus on that too much. Any Guardian you pick is going to have a lot of CC and is going to be really annoying to the other team. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the first Guardian here. That's Ares. Ares' main thing is initiation. He has, if he buys Blink, Blink is a very common relic to buy on Ares, and so what that allows him to do is blink into the middle of a bunch of grouped up opponents, and then use his ultimate, and so that attaches chains to everybody within a relatively large radius around Ares, and then in a couple seconds it pulls them all towards him. And so if the people that he grabs, if their purification is down, and if they have any crowd control immune ultimates that are also down, or they just don't think to use those, then he's going to pull them all right towards him, do a little bit of damage, stun them right under his feet for a second, and then that just groups the whole team up in one spot where all your high damage dealers can just unleash all the abilities that they have and just decimate the entire team, right? So this is a great ability. Now, at the higher levels of play, this doesn't always work out that way because a lot of players understand how to use purification, understand how to use crowd control immunity, or immune abilities more efficiently and more effectively. So they'll be prepared for Ares to do this, and they'll sometimes use their crowd control immune abilities or relics or whatever they may have to get out of this pull that he has. But what that means is that he also is going to burn everybody's purification or everybody's crowd control immune abilities. So that way, whenever you start a fight again in 20 seconds or whatever, however long it may be, all their relics are going to be down, and so that's another great thing that Ares does. He burns beads. Basically, beads and purification are the same thing. He burns purification, which gives you guys a huge advantage in the next fight. So that's another great thing that Ares does. Athena. Now, Athena can do a lot of different things. She's really high mobility. She does really high damage, but her main thing is initiation. So Athena has her best ability, the ability that she's most known for, is her taunt. She has her second ability is this cone-shaped taunt. It's this massively sized taunt that you can press a button and instantly taunt a group of people all right towards you to group them up in one place. So it has a similar effect to the Ares ability, except it's a smaller ability, but it's quicker. So you just dash on top of somebody or a group of enemies, and then taunt them all together. And this is great setup for your teammate, especially if you have teammates that have very high damage abilities that are usually difficult to hit. This makes them easy to hit. It confirms the damage and groups them up so you can hit multiple people with abilities. So this is a great way to initiate a fight because it interrupts anything that they're doing, groups them all together, and your teammates can all just damage the crap out of them, and it just gives you huge advantage in the fight if you don't already get kills off of that. So Athena's a great initiator. Should also be noted though that this taunt is a great ability for peeling. She also has extremely high mobility. She has a dash and a global ultimate where she can ult right on top of any one of her teammates across the map, which also does a lot of damage, and her shield wall, if it hits twice, does an insane amount of damage too. So Athena does a lot of things really well, but her like name, I don't even know, name to fame, that's not, I don't know, that's not a saying, but there is a saying, but that's not what it is. But anyway, the thing that makes her awesome is her ability to initiate almost better than almost any other Guardian in the game. Bacchus. Bacchus is also an initiator. Bacchus has a leap that jumps on people and it knocks them up, anybody that gets hit by this leap. And then he also has his ultimate, which does a really high amount of damage, considering he's a Guardian, to enemies in a pretty large radius around him, and then makes them drunk, quote unquote. And basically they kind of hobble around and they sort of lose control of what direction they're moving. If you've ever been hit by this ultimate, you know what I'm talking about. You kind of can control where you're going, but kind of not, and it's really annoying. And so you're kind of wandering and like falling all over the place and stuff. And it's just, you kind of lose control of where you're moving. So this is a great way to initiate a fight. You jump on people, knock them up, which sets up your teammates' abilities, and you can do a bunch of damage to them and make them lose control of where they're moving, which obviously gives you guys a huge advantage in the team fight. Also, I kind of mentioned this, but Bacchus also does a very high amount of damage for a Guardian, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Cabrakan. Cabrakan, he's not really played in the support role that much. He's not played that much in general, but when he is played, he's usually played in the solo lane. As a support, I guess I would call him an initiator. His ultimate is a decent initiation. Problem is he doesn't have any abilities to really close the distance, so we kind of have to buy Blink like Ares would, but he doesn't really use it as effectively. But I guess I would call him an initiator. He does have a decent amount of crowd control, but in general, Braken's just sort of a frontliner. Like he doesn't initiate a team fight by himself, but he just kind of runs around in the front line almost like a warrior would. And just annoys the other team's backline, annoys their characters. He does damage them, he crowd controls them. So he's not going to have this huge team fight initiation that like Ares or Athena or Bacchus might have. But in sort of prolonged team fights, he's just going to run around and just be a nuisance. And he also has pretty high single target damage and single target crowd control. So he's good at setting up picks on like a single character, but in a big team fight, he's not going to like crowd control the entire team all at once. But he's just going to be a nuisance. So that's kind of what Braken does. Fafnir. Fafnir does a little bit of everything. He has, I would say, I said I wasn't going to name anybody as a crowd control god, but I'm going to go back on that because Fafnir kind of is. Fafnir has like 5 crowd control abilities or something like that. He has like a stun, a disarm, another stun, and another disarm. And then he also has an ability that buffs his teammates' attack speed and heals himself, an ability that makes him immune and does damage to the other team. And then, when he's in his ultimate, his dragon form, he does just really high amounts of damage too. So Fafnir just kind of does a lot of different things, and you kind of have choices with him how you want to play him. You can keep him in the back line if you want, because he doesn't have the best initiation. So if you let the other team initiate on you and then you sort of counter initiate by like stunning them out of their abilities and peeling for your teammates with your stuns and your disarms and all that, that's great. You can also initiate if you want to, go for one of the squishy characters in the back line, stun them, disarm them, ult them, stun them again, disarm them again. You can see how this kind of goes, where you just are stunned for like a year and a half. And then do a lot of damage too. So Fafnir's really strong. He does a lot of different things, but I'm not really going to lump him into one category because you can kind of play him in different style or different ways depending on your style of play, I guess. All right, Geb. Geb does 2 things very well, but I'm going to talk. I think his main thing is initiation. So Geb is another character that it's very popular to buy Blink on, and the reason is because his ultimate hits the whole team in a pretty big radius around him, which is kind of a theme for Guardians. He has this big radius AoE ability around him. It's called like Earthquake or Shockwave or something, I don't remember. And he sort of lifts the ground out. It's like makes an earthquake around him in this big radius. And anybody in that radius gets damage for a percentage of their health. I think it ends at 35. I don't remember what it starts at. It goes from 15 to 35% of the target's current health, right? So at the beginning, this is why this is such a great initiation ability, because at the beginning of a fight, everybody's pretty much at full health, right? So that's when you want to use this ability because you're doing the most damage because it's the percentage of their current health. So when they're at maximum health, you're going to take 35% of anybody that's hit in that radius of their current health. So if you're hitting a Guardian, that's 35% of a Guardian's health. That means you're doing like 800 damage or something to a Guardian as another Guardian, and then you're also going to stun them for, let's look at the ability again. You're going to stun them for, starts at 1.6 and goes to 2 seconds. That's an insanely long stun. And then after that, you have the Shockwave ability. It's a cone-shaped knock-up and damage ability, basically. So you're going to stun them for 2 seconds, then you're going to knock the whole team up and do damage to them. So you just did insane amounts of damage to the whole team and crowd-controlled them for like 3 seconds. So this just, it immediately sets the team behind, the other team behind, in terms of just health bars, because you just reduced all their health bars. If you can find an ult that hits like 3 or 4 or 5 people on the other team, sets them behind, and it also sets up a lot of damage for the rest of your team because you're stunning people and knocking them up and just keeping them crowd controlled for an eternity. So this is a great initiation. The other thing that Geb does really well, though, is he has one of the best peeling abilities in the game, and that's his 3, his Stone Shield. And this puts a shield around your allies that not only gives them extra health. Basically, it's a shield that absorbs some of the damage that they take, up to, I think, 250 health, it said, plus, let me go back and look because I don't know the numbers on this ability, 250 plus 20 per Geb's level. So at max level, he's doing, if I could do math, he's doing, it's a 650 health shield, which is pretty big, especially when, like, targets that are going to dive your backline, your mages, they kind of have a sense of how much damage they can do and how much damage the other person's going to take, and they kind of know, based on their combo abilities, whether they think they can kill you or not. And if they're not factoring in the possibility of Geb having a shield, then they might put themselves in a dangerous situation in the backline expecting to get a kill, and then Geb shields them, and they didn't factor that in, so then they realize they can't get the kill, and then they die, and you save your teammate. And it can be a great ability, really annoying to the other team, really valuable to your team if you use it right. Another thing to keep in mind is that this shield, when you put it on them, it cleanses crowd control. So it doesn't make you crowd control immune. All right, so if you know that somebody's about to get crowd controlled, don't use the shield on them yet, because if you put the shield on them and then, let's say, after you put the shield on them, Ymir tries to freeze them, they're going to get frozen. But if you wait, if you know that Ymir's running at them like he's going to freeze them, and you let him freeze them, and then as soon as as your teammate gets frozen, then you shield them, it's going to cleanse that freeze immediately, so they're not going to be frozen anymore. It's also going to give them, it's going to mitigate some of the damage that's coming in after the freeze. You know, it's going to absorb up to 650 damage that they take if you're at max rank. So this is a fantastic ability for peeling. Great in team fights. It makes it hard to play Geb, though, because you always have to know, you have to be aware of everybody in your team who's being attacked, whose health is where, who needs the shield the most, and if they need the shield, because you don't want to like use the shield and then have them switch targets to another squishy character and kill them because you know the shield. So it's this sort of dance, and we're going to talk about Khepri next, and he has sort of the same dilemma, where it takes a very skilled player to use Geb. Geb has a very high skill ceiling, meaning that a very skilled player can use Geb extremely well, because that ability is really good, but it gets better and better the more skilled you are using it and the better understanding you have of the game and of your team comp and their team comp and the dynamic of the team fights and everything. So Geb is very good for players that really understand him and understand the dynamic of team fights really well. Khepri is a peeler. He can initiate, but he's sort of like Kabrakin in the sense that he initiates on one person. You know, he doesn't initiate on a whole team. He doesn't really have anything that damages the whole team. You know, he has a root, but it roots. I mean, it could root more than one person, but it's a pretty small radius. So essentially, you're rooting one person. He has a thing where he like grabs people. It's called abduct. He grabs them and like drags them back towards his teammates. But again, it's one person. And then, so he can initiate on like one person. He's good at getting picks. He can initiate a team fight if he wants, but he's not the best at initiating. What he is the best at, though, is peeling, and here's why. He has his one, which is an abduct. So if somebody jumps on your backline and tries to kill someone, you can grab them with this abduct, which essentially interrupts whatever they're doing and drags them away from them. You also have a root, so you can root them in place so they can't chase down your teammate. You have an ability that your two, if you throw that on your teammates, this line ability. If you hit one of your teammates with that, it reduces the amount of damage that they take. I think it does something else too. I'm gonna look. It debuffs the protections of the enemy. So if you hit the enemy with this, then you guys might be able to kill them before they kill your teammate. If you hit your teammate with it, it reduces the percentage of damage that they take in by 30%. So a 30% damage reduction is insane, because this is like a percentage of all damage taken, right? Like, it's the same thing as like Spirit Robe is like a 15% damage reduction, right? Well, this is double that. So this is an insane amount of damage reduction, so that's really good for peeling. And then his ultimate is probably the best peel ability in the game because it resurrects your teammates if they die. It lasts for, it's a mark that you put on your teammates basically, or a teammate. And it lasts for a few seconds, I think like 4 or 5 seconds. Let me go look now that I'm talking about timing. 5 seconds. Lasts for 5 seconds. And if at any time while that mark is on them that your teammate dies, then they don't actually die. They just get resurrected, pulled towards Khepri, and they get a second life basically, and they respawn at like 25 to 50% health depending on how leveled up it is. Yeah, 25 to 45% health. This is great, you know. So if you have a character in the other team like a Loki or a Serket or an Awilix or somebody that's just so annoying because they can just blink into your backline or ult into your backline and just explode the mage or the hunter before you can do anything about it. You know, you might kill them, but they're still going to eliminate one of your big team fight damage players and just get them out of the team fight, which is their job. It can be so frustrating because you feel like at any given time in a team fight, before you know what's happening, one of your big damage dealers is gone out of the fight, right? But Khepri counteracts this so well because, you know, like if a Loki blinks onto, say, you know, your Poseidon that's in the backline or something, and he doesn't have beads or sanctuary up, and he's just gonna die because Loki does stupid amounts of damage. Then if you're quick enough and you realize what's happening, you can turn around and use your ultimate on Poseidon. And so then Loki just ulted in. He probably uses invisibility and his 3. He used his whole kit to try and just explode this Poseidon in one shot, right? You're going to turn around. He's going to explode this Poseidon, then Poseidon's going to get resurrected. So he failed at his job. Loki failed at his job because he didn't actually get the kill, and then Loki's got nothing left, and you turn around and kill him. So now you guys are a man up. You still have everybody alive on your team. And this is just great for dealing with that. Also, you know, if one of your teammates gets overextended in a fight and they can't really get out, if you can get close enough to them to put your mark on them when you know they're about to die and then run away, then it'll resurrect them when they die, and then they'll be pulled all the way back to you out of the team fight. So it's another great thing. And it also lets your frontliners be a little bit extra aggressive. If they know that if you are communicating with them and they trust you, then they can be a little more aggressive than they normally would be because they know that you have their back and you can resurrect them if things go bad. Now, you, as people that are playing with a Khepri in your team, you should not rely on that unless you really know this Khepri player well and you play together a lot and you know that they've got your back. You know, don't just rely on some random player to resurrect you every time you get in a bad situation. That's not what you want to do. But I'm saying that with good communication, that can be an option. Kumbhakarna. We're gonna put Kumbhakarna in the. He's so good at initiating and peeling that I'm gonna put him in both. Kumbhakarna is great at initiating because if he has blink, he can blink onto a group of enemies and then use his giant mesmerize that lasts for like 5 seconds or something stupid like that. And it crowd controls the whole teammate, so it sets up a lot of damage. He also has a root. He has an ultimate that basically chuck somebody up into the sky really, really high, and in like 2 seconds they come back down and hit the ground right where you launched them from. So not only they take a lot of damage from this, right? So there's 3 great things with this. 1, they take a lot of damage, way too much damage, I think, for considering the fact that Kumbhakarna is a guardian. It's kind of annoying. 2, it basically banishes somebody from the team fight for 2 seconds, right? So if you know somebody's doing a lot of damage to your team, you just need to get them out of the fight. This is a great way to do that. You know, so you can pick who you don't want in the fight and just get them out of it. And then 3, they're going up. They're going to come back and land at a spot at a very predictable spot and time, right? So you launch them up, and then in I wonder if it says in the ability how long it is that they're in the air. Knock-up time. All right, so in 2.2 seconds, right? And if you play with Kumbhakarnas, you play this game enough, you'll just kind of have an internal sense of how long that time is. You're going to know exactly when they're going to hit the ground and exactly where they're going to hit the ground, and the other team and the other player that's knocked up can't do anything about that, right? So they're going to come down in this one spot, and you know that. So characters like Ra or Kukulkan or Scylla that have these extremely high damage abilities that are hard to connect, now all of a sudden they're not hard to connect anymore because you just knock them up in the air and you know exactly when they're going to come down and exactly where they're going to come down. And so you basically guarantee a kill on any squishy character that you ult with Kumbhakarna if you then chain that with like a Scylla ult or a Ra ult or something like that late in the game, because you're guaranteed to hit the ult assuming the player understands the timing. And so it's just a free kill at the beginning of any fight. So that's another great thing about Kumbhakarna. Also, I mentioned that Mesmerize that he has and the root. So he has a lot of crowd control, and even his ultimate is crowd control, right? So he has a lot of ways to peel for his teammates if things go wrong in a team fight. So he's great at doing that too. Sylvanas. I'm going to call Sylvanas an initiator. I mean, the big thing about Sylvanas is he's a great healer. He heals his whole team, and he just keeps doing it on cooldown, and it's really annoying. But he also has a lot of great initiation. He has a similar ability to Geb, where he has this AoE ultimate that hits the whole team around him. So if he buys Blink, he can blink onto a whole team, knock them up. Anybody that gets hit in this AoE around him gets knocked up into the air, and then when they come down, they take like this damage over time, basically. So that's a great crowd control ability to start the fight, set up for your teammates. It's also a good peel ability if you need to use it that way. And then he has a root, which he has like this flowered thing that he can throw, and if it hits somebody, then it roots them in place. And he also has this like branch that he can throw out and grab somebody and pull them towards him. So that's a great way to pull somebody out of position in a team fight and let your team kill them. So that's a good way to initiate. Jing Chen is an initiator for sure. Now Jing Chen isn't played so much anymore because his main initiation ability is his ultimate, which is basically he spins around in this giant circle and like grabs anybody and swings them in a circle and then throws them in the direction that he's looking. So if he can blink onto a lot of people in the other team and ults like two or three or four of them, right? Then he's going to throw them all. It's kind of like Kumbhakarna in a sense where he throws them all into a very predictable place in a very predictable time. So it sets up a lot of damage from the rest of your team. It can help you win a team fight almost immediately, right? The problem is that the wind up time for this ability is like a half of a decade. Like, I mean, honestly, like you might have entire Smite games that last shorter than Jing Chen's wind up time in his ultimate. So it's very easy to dodge. And so anybody with half a brain dodges this ability a lot. And so it can be very, very hard to use Jing Chen effectively as an initiator because you just can't hit his ultimate if the team is ready for it. I mean, if the team is all grouped up and not paying attention, they don't know that you're there and you blink on top of them, maybe you'll get some of them. You still might not, but you might. And then if that happens, then you're going to win a team fight. But as of now, it just takes so long for his ultimate to wind up that it's kind of hard to play him. But if you can make that work, I'm not saying don't play him. If you can make that work, then he's a great initiator. He does a pretty high amount of damage too as a guardian, so it's a good thing if you can make that work. Ymir, he's kind of out of order because I haven't bought to the guardian. So Ymir is an initiator. He has his wall, can sort of wall off different parts of the map, and if you use that well, it can separate parts of the other team from where they want to be. And then you can initiate on like a smaller group of them if you want. You know, there's lots of different things you can do with his wall. But then he has this cone-shaped freeze, kind of similar to Athena's taunt, except instead of pulling them all to one spot, it just freezes them in place where they are. But still a great way to set up some damage. He also is just a high damage character. So he has good initiation with his 3. Basically, he can freeze a lot of people. Not a lot of people. When you freeze a couple people and set up a lot of damage from your team. But then his 2, his line ability, it's called the Glacier Strike, I think, does a pretty high amount of damage for a Guardian. And then also his ultimate, if charged up completely, so if you there are certain times when you kind of know where the other team's going to be, and if you charge that up completely and explode that, then it does like 1100. It's like he's a mage, basically. He does a really, really high amount of damage. Weak thing about Ymir is that he's very immobile, so you really have to be good with your positioning on Ymir. Sobek is an initiator. He can be a peeler again. You know, he's got a lot of displacement with his pluck, and his tail whip can, you know, crowd control the other team and peel for your backline. But his main thing is that if he can dash forward and pluck somebody and throw them behind him right into his team. So if one of their damage characters, really if anybody gets out of position, and he hits them with that pluck, he's going to get them out of place from the rest of their team, and you'll just get this free pick, this free kill at the beginning of a fight and just put you in an advantage. And then from there, he can do a lot of damage in the backline. He can do a lot of crowd control and just kind of annoying the backline. And his tail whip and things like that. And then his ultimate does a decent amount of damage too. It slows the other team, so again, more setup for your team. Great, aggressive. If you want to play aggressive as a Guardian, Sobek is the one to play. Terra. I'm not going to put Terra in any category because Terra kind of does a little bit of everything. And Terra is all about choices, right? So Terra has like she's got like 2 different kinds of stones that she can put up, and then she can choose to destroy them or not destroy them, which, you know, can do damage, or it can root people, or it can heal people, or give her like knock 'em immunity. She has an ultimate that makes the whole team faster. I think it like stops them from using mana. Let me look at this. All their abilities don't cost any mana. They have increased crowd control. If they take damage more than 4 times while this ability is on them, then they heal at the end of it, and they have like increased movement speed, right? So it just does a ton of things for her team. She has a heal with her 3. She just does everything, right? And she has a really high amount of crowd control too. So if you want to use it, she's not the best initiator, but if you want to use her to initiate fights because she has high crowd control, you can do that. If you want to use her to peel for your teammates because she has high crowd control, you can do that. If you want to heal your teammates, you can do that. If you want to, there's just so many choices. And so that makes her hard to become really, really good at, because you have to really have a high understanding of the character and all the different combinations of abilities you can use and the different choices you can make and when to choose different things. But again, this is kind of like, who else did I say this about? Geb. For a different reason, she's kind of like Gab, where she has a very high skill ceiling, where if you learn how to play this character well, she's got so many options, she can react to so many different scenarios so well if you know how to do it right. I don't, that's why I can't play Terra, because I don't understand her well enough. But if you do, there's a lot of different things you can do, a lot of choices you have, and so Terra is just the god of choices, basically. You can do anything you want with her if you know how to do it. So yeah, it was kind of a long video, but hope I got through everything. That's my guide on the support role and, you know, the different guardians. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Okay, warriors. There's 2 warriors that are support characters. Erlang Shen is, you know, Erlang Shen can be played in the jungle, in the support role, in the solo role. Heck, I'd play him in mid if somebody asked me to. Like, this guy's just broken. So, Erlang Shen is an initiator. I mean, he has crowd control ability. He does a lot of damage. He's got like a cripple and a root. He does a lot of damage. He has a knock up. He has a taunt that gives him damage mitigation and heals him. So he's got a lot of different things that can root the enemy team in place, crowd control him, and then he just goes in and does a lot of damage. Again, he can't peel, but his main thing is initiation. And then Guan Yu doesn't have a lot of crowd control, which makes him different from some of the other supports. He's still more of an initiator because he does a lot of damage. He has a very short cooldowns, and his ultimate is a great initiation tool. But Guan Yu's main thing that makes him stand out is his heal. He has an AoE heal that heals the entire team around him. So especially in those long engagements where you're like sieging a tower or sieging a phoenix, or even in short engagements too, he's just really, really helpful at sticking with his team and healing. I guess you could call that a form of peel, healing your teammates. So he can be a peeler in that sense. But Guan's main thing as a support is that he's a great healer. So yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that I touched on those 2 those 2 warriors because they get played a lot. But yeah, that's my solo, or not my solo, my support guide. You know, just openings, laning, and team fights. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment. My last guide, my Hunter ADC carry, whatever you want to call it, video should be coming out shortly. That should be my last one as far as this series of guides goes. So look out for that. Of course, if you like the video, go ahead and hit that like, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment if there's any other videos that you want to see. If you have any questions, any suggestions, concerns, anything, just comment, let me know. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Most importantly, check out my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/steelorange3398. That's where I'm filming this and where I stream almost every day. So check me out there. And that's it. Steel Orange out. Thanks, guys.